Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Family Friday webinar. It's July 23rd, 2021. I'm Bridget Guernsey-Reardon with the Office of Family and Parent Programs, and it's great to see you all again. I'm usually joined by my colleague, Sherry Obrance. She had a task to do today, so she's sorry she can't join us, but I told her I'd try to hold down the fort for all of us. So glad to see you all today, and we're happy that you could join us. I'm joined by a cast of experts today. Our topic will be finding connections. And that's a big topic for students coming to Emory and for your students, because we have had a crazy 16 months, and we do look forward to having our students find connections socially, through student organizations, through all the activities and topics that they have to explore at Emory. So we're excited to have you here today. As we do with all of these webinars, please ask any questions in the chat. Some of our panelists may be putting links in the chat, and feel free to ask anything, because we know from you what are the questions we need to help answer. And I want to give a shout out to Jill, who's helping us technically today, even though she's not really on camera. But I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves. And again, this is our welcome back. You've been with us, a lot of you, every day. I mean, every Friday at least, almost every Friday this summer. And we have a few more Fridays to go we'll talk about later. But I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves on the level of listing here. We'll go first with Jordan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rabbi Jordan Brownig. I am the Jewish chaplain within the Office of Spiritual and Religious Life. I use the he series pronouns. I am delighted to be here because the topic of making connections is one that I think about regularly in this work. And this is the start of my second year at Emory and my first, hopefully, much more regular year at Emory. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jordan. Next, we'll go with our student panelist, who's Rachel.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Ding, and I'm the Emory Student Government Association president. So we are the primary student policy setting group on campus, and we represent all Emory students. I'm a senior, and I am majoring in finance and political science. I'm so excited to talk to you guys today.
Great. And next is Lisa.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Lovell. I'm the Director for Student Involvement, Leadership, and Transitions. There are a lot of components that are within my office that help your students find ways of making meaning and creating connections on campus, specifically through a variety of different involvement opportunities and experiences. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm really, really excited to be here with you all today.
Thank you, Lisa. And next is Chanel.
Hi, I'm Chanel Kraft Tanner. I'm one of the directors in Belonging and Community Justice. I direct the Center for Women. I use she, her pronouns. I've worked at the Center for Women for 7 years. And before that, I was a PhD student here at Emory. I did my PhD in the Department of Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you, Chanel. Again, these folks are experts. I go to them on a regular basis, refer students and families to them. And so today we're going to talk about their areas. And the first that we'll talk about is I'll ask Jordan a series of questions so that he can talk to you about the Office of Spiritual and Religious Life. So Jordan, I know over the past 18 months or so, we've really increased the staffing with the office, and there's so many folks who are serving students. Could you tell us a little bit about what's been done over the past 18 months?
Yeah, so I count myself in that growth that has happened within our office. So under the leadership of Dean McGonigal, the Reverend Greg McGonigal, who is our Dean of Religious Life and our university chaplain, we've grown the office in a way so that it reflects the real diversity of student demographics on campus. So along with me, you can see my picture. I'm wearing the little pumpkin colored kippah down there in the picture. We have Shweta Chaitanya, who's our new Hindu chaplain, the Venerable Priya Sraman, who's our Buddhist chaplain. Our newest member is Maddie Henderson, who's a up and coming Methodist minister. and, you know, has that connection to the sort of Methodist heritage of our office. And we come and are to join Dr. Issam Vaid, who is our Muslim religious life scholar. And at Oxford, we're lucky enough to have Reverend Lynn Pace, and we have Mari Alams, who directs our music and is in charge of the Voices of Inner Strength gospel choir. So the idea is that this group of chaplains can really serve the populations on our campus and can be field guides. And, you know, I deal with Jewish students primarily, but I just went out to coffee last week with a Presbyterian student who had questions. So we all sort of serve the entire Emory population, including like a huge group of students for whom like religion isn't a huge part of their life, but the sort of big questions of where am I going, who do I want to be in the world, are questions that we're happy to answer and do some of that work of. It's possible in college sometimes to feel like a floating brain, like especially on Zoom. I mean, where it's really just our heads are up here. So what we're trying to do is really like do the work of connecting heart and mind and reminding students that they're like full-fledged human beings. It's not just about their GPA or the internship they got that summer, but really about like, you know, how do you feel as a person right now?
Yeah, and Jordan, one thing I've always been impressed with at Emory is how I'd say your office permeates campus. Like there's so many times that there might be a program on something that has to do with race, but oftentimes because of the multiple identities we have, there's a spiritual component that can be added into that. So I really appreciate how your office has always been part of the discussion on multiple levels of what we do at Emory. So our families, of course, you know, they don't know what their students will be experiencing when they come to school. They may be raised a certain faith. Tell us why you think it's beneficial for students to get involved in some of the student organizations and activities that are involved.
Yeah, I mean, so for a lot of students, like, yeah, I think first of all, thanks for saying that, Bridget, about the sort of work we do with all of our campus partners. It's something we're proud of in our office. But, you know, being a person who's like, you know, raised Muslim, like that's part of your identity, but you might also be into, you know, stand-up comedy or racial justice, or you might be a Catholic who wants to talk about farming. And so to sort of think about the like ways in which religious identity intersects with other parts of our identities is something that our office is thinking about a lot. You know, one of the benefits of working with our office is that in terms of interfaith work, there are so few times in your life where like you can really sit down and be like, I'm going to learn deeply about like Buddhism, and I'm going to talk to classmates about their religious upbringing, because what I find that happens on campus sometimes is you have like lists of questions that are like the normal questions. Where are you from? What are your majors? And sometimes you can really understand a lot about a person by like, well, like what were the like values that your grandparents tried to impart to you? What were like holidays like in your house? And sort of letting people share a little bit of that side of their story can be a really wonderful way of connecting. And like in terms of advice to first years is that there are all sorts of ways to like you come in with a couple of thousand people, you know, it's a big class. And so to think about micro communities that you might belong to, that you might become a part of, and each time you're in a little smaller group, you have an opportunity to get to know a group of people a little better than you can in that sort of like most zoomed out way.
Yeah, I found too that many of us, I've been at Emory a number of years, I've learned so much about other religions at Emory in just such wonderful ways. And I find students take a pride and they learn different aspects of religion. And it's such a great exploratory time for students. I'm completely impressed with so many of our students who just decide to take a world religion class, but then they're able to then take that and maybe join a student group they hadn't thought of or do something similar to that. So as we're talking, I want to ask Rachel, who is our student panelist, about any experiences that you've had with anything with the office or any of the student organizations that are involved.
And you're asking specifically about the Office of Spiritual and Religious.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I think I'm from Oxford, and something that Lynn Pace does a really amazing job at is he has a lot of student-focused events, and he's always out in the community. So he represents the Office of Spiritual and Religious Life in a way that makes him the sort of like go-to person. He makes sure that the students know his office is a safe space. You don't have to go to him just for religious, advice or anything, honestly, anything related to your religion or spirituality. But he makes it so clear that when he comes to these student events and when he's just walking around campus, you can go up to him and like talk to him about anything. And he opens up his office to anyone and to talk about your experience at Emory, what you're struggling with, and he's there to help. So I guess for students who don't believe or don't have any connection to that in the past, that's the Office of Spiritual and Religious Life is also there for you, not just as a religious service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the pastoral counseling ability, I know when we've had elections that have been controversial, when we were all together, I remember watching our chaplains walk across campus and students just gravitating to them.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, you're going to help me make sense of this. I'm not sure what I think of this. I'm not sure how to be about this. And it was just so comforting. It was amazing.
Right.
Amazing.
Right. And I think that what Rachel points out, perfectly is that model that Lynn sets, and that I hope all of us as chaplains set, of just being a non-anxious, caring presence for our students. Because, at the end of the day, we want students to feel seen and cared for at Emory, and it doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter if you're a person of faith or you're a person who's like, oh, I'm completely atheist or agnostic. It's like, yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here for you.
Mm-hmm. Great. So Jordan, I'm going to move on to talking with Lisa about student involvement, but families, please know any questions or anything you want to ask any of us about any of the areas we're talking about, keep them coming, and we're happy to respond. So thank you, Jordan, and you're still part of our group today, so thanks. So Lisa, we're going to talk a little bit about student involvement, leadership, and transitions, which really is a great title for your office if you want to get involved. And I love that you've adopted this new triangle method, and I want you to talk about getting involved, how it's different from high school to the opportunities related to Emory. And I think it'll help families understand how to encourage their students to get involved.
Yes, no problem. So the first things first is, yes, I'm a part of Student Involvement, Leadership, and Transitions, which is short on campus and mostly known as SILT. And I will go into some of the components of the office a little bit later, but what I really want to make sure that you take away and potentially have conversations with your student before they come physically to Emory is about making meaning through finding connections and building community. A little bit of a different philosophy that we have here is you typically will hear come find yourself, come find home, and make connections, and we definitely want all of those components. But what we really want to harp on is that your home is here, and so making sure that it's here, you have the resources needed, and let's explore together or on your own, in a variety of different ways. And so what we typically try to allow students to understand is that you are clearly a high achieving student to be coming to Emory, which means that you have had rigorous academic background, but also you have a wide berth of and variety of extracurricular or co-curricular experiences. Those are the components that got you to Emory, which is wonderful. And so that's why we have this triangle under the high school column. When you enter high school, you're probably just finding out about different hobbies or experiences or things that you're interested in, the exploratory, getting your feet wet, to the time that you are about to graduate, which is at the bottom of that triangle, where you have a whole lot on your plate as far as different activities and experiences. So you're probably exiting high school as a captain of an organization or a sports team, first chair, second chair of your symphony or your band, president, executive director of a service-based organization. And so you have all of these wonderful experiences, but now you're entering a new community that has been here, correct? And so that, you know, it is established community here, but always welcoming to the new folks who come. And so then we move over to the next column, which is the Emory triangle, where what we ask of your students is go out there, become just a general member, explore, try something different, try something new, find things that really connect your heart to the things that you're doing. You might want to think about things that you're learning in class. Try out the organization that is most affiliated with the things that you're interested in class. And so we have that wide angle of a triangle entering Emory. And as you decide to understand a little bit more, take that deeper dive, think about different officer positions, your second, third, or fourth year. And so we just want to make sure that students know that we have a lot of student organizations and experiences and programs that are either long-term or short-term as far as commitment goes. And we want to make sure that your students know that there is something for everybody here. And sometimes that happens very quickly, and sometimes it doesn't happen very quickly, and everyone's journey is different. But the thing is that you're never alone, and there's plenty of folks to help guide you through that experience. So,
Lisa, that is, I love that. And I love that you've all explained it so clearly. And I know what we're finding from students, and we're doing summer send-offs that some of you families have been on, and we appreciate that. And our student panelists the other day said that find what you love and do what you love, and then you will meet people, because you'll have that common interest. So just like we say early on, cast a wide net, because we all love a lot of things when you come out of high school. And then from there, find out what your true passion is. And then you're able to focus, and then you find your people a little more. So we'll let Rachel interject on this one, because Rachel, if you can tell us, like with our little triangles, what was your experience? And now we know that you're SGA president, Student Government Association president. So tell us about your experiences.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was implicit in a lot of what Lisa said about the inverted triangle, but I just want to draw it out a little bit more. My advice to new students is to try everything, but especially in college, you want to give yourself as many opportunities as possible to be successful. So from a student leader perspective now, my advice to parents is it seems like the best experiences for students is when they have the ability to choose. So that might look like signing up for 20 clubs initially and then being seriously overcommitted, but then being able to choose which one of those you actually want to derive value from or to have a leadership position in, rather than initially only signing up for 2 or 3 clubs. And then you realize, oh, I should have started this earlier, or I don't know what my choices are later in the year. So I was not involved in student government during high school. And so when I got to college, I simply didn't know anything about it. But during the first week of school, I was dragged to the student activities fair by my friends. And just everybody was, signing up for clubs. You just write your name down on a list and you're put on this email chain, and there's like 100 info sessions for all these clubs. And the student government stand was there, and I just listened to them talk about their elections. And I was like, I'm just going to try this, give it a shot. And so I signed up for a bunch of other clubs as well, but I ended up throughout the years, not being as active in those and really focusing on student government, because that's where I derived value.
Great. And families, just so you know too, I think Lisa and Rachel will agree, oftentimes students sign up and there's so many people that have signed up, they might start to feel discouraged because they aren't getting a leadership position right away. But they come from being a senior in high school, and now they're back to being the freshman. And they forgot that that's how things work. And so encourage them to be patient, because people start to then go into the things that really interest them. And so you don't keep 20 people, you're not in 20 organizations at the same time. That's impossible. But then it starts to work out where everyone can narrow their focus. And then also, just so you know too, employers look for, and grad schools look for people who've had a passion. So they want to know what their passion is. I wrote a recommendation for a med school student once whose passion was rugby. But that made him unique, and he experienced rugby at Emory that he never would have experienced before. So just make sure your students find the things they love, enjoy, and they're not doing them to collect a pedigree. They're there to enjoy and show their passion, and that'll come through with an future employer, future grad school, with whatever they do. So so Lisa, let's go on to talking about the specifics of your office.
All right, so I wanted to make sure to inform everyone that we have more than 400 student organizations available for you. And I want to make sure that your students understand that 75% of those organizations have a non-application based entry. And so you will probably hear from your students, and your students will probably hear from their peer leaders, from either RAs to SAs to OLs, about come join this organization or come find out about this organization. And some of those will have tryouts, applications, interviews, and that's very much present on this campus. And some of your students may not get into the first 1, 2, or 3 of those groups, but just being able to inform them of the numbers, that 75% of those 400 or over 400 student organizations have a non-application based entry to them. So just knowing that there are plenty of organizations to become a general member, a dancer within a dance troupe, an athlete within intramurals or club sports. There are all sorts of different ways to find connection. And so I just want to make sure that you have those numbers and are able to support your students through that beginning journey, because the transitions into a new environment and a new community is tough. And we want to acknowledge that, but know that there is plenty of spaces for soft landings.
That's a great point, Lisa. And also, if there's an a cappella group and you don't get selected the first year, start going to some of those events where they're performing, and you might be interested in another a cappella group. And then it might be where you learn a little bit more and you would have changed your mind about what you would have done anyhow. So just make sure that your students know that it is competitive on some level for some. To be on the crew team could be competitive. However, just because you're not in the first boat doesn't mean that you can't be riding in number 3 boat and learning and then advancing to number 1. So that's a true part of that too. So one thing I love, you have so many good resources, and they were really useful during this past year. Like so many times we referred students who were on campus or not on campus to your office for help with guidance about how to get connected. So tell our folks here about 3 main things to know.
Sure, because I could certainly talk all day about all the things that we provide from a programmatic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this session, everybody, just so you know, with all these presenters, we could talk for, we could talk all day. Yeah.
We could talk all day, but I wanted you to have 3 key takeaways as far as working with your student entering Emory and finding, the different resources that are available through SILT. The first one is that, again, they're not alone. So they will be working with their OLs when they first get here and have that connection within their orientation. OL, is short for orientation leader.
Thank you.
Yes, no problem. We love an acronym at Emory, or even initials. And so they will have a peer connection point right there, or their resident advisor or their sophomore advisor, which is within residence life. But another component is our steer team that is through our office, which is a trained group of student leaders who serve as basically involvement ambassadors, will be your peer guide to finding those connections in student organizations. So their main mission is to be able to understand all the variety of student organizations that are on campus and be able to have really great active listening skills to find and assist your student in finding those connections if they need a little bit more mentorship with that process. They also provide a variety of different resources, such as interviewing skills, or assistance with applications. And so, again, there's a peer perspective to provide some feedback in that process and journey. The second item is called Involve EU Week, which is our student activities fair. And this year is actually a little bit different. Thanks to COVID, one of the benefits of being in an online environment is that we broke down our activities fair, which used to be one night, thousands of students out in the area. We've actually broken it up into 4 days, and each day has a different category of student organizations, so it doesn't feel as overwhelming. And so each night is a party. We have food, we have interactive attractions, we have music, but we also have a variety of the different student organizations within applicable categories each night from Sunday through Wednesday. And I'll put the flyer with the more specific information in the chat that you can have and share with your student. So this is a great way to have those initial conversations with student organizations in those specific categorical areas.
And I'm so excited you're doing it this way. I think this is a great new initiative because it is a lot of fun. I'm a crowd person, but I know a lot of the people. I can only imagine coming in and seeing 400 student organizations out there. So parents, I encourage you, parent and family members, encourage you to get your student to go by every night, because you might think that they only are interested in service organizations, but heck, they might not have ever seen that there's the religious organizations or the political organizations. So, and plus free food, at a college campus, free food is pretty fun, and socialization. So encourage them to go by every night and just check it out. And I really appreciate that y'all are doing this. That's a great initiative.
Yeah, and we are designing it so if you feel overwhelmed by talking to student organizations every evening, there are alternative activities to do at that evening just to be out there and meet other people or be a part of the community as a whole. So just knowing that if you don't want to go up to the different student groups and their tables, there's food to get. There are some, swag or how the students are calling it now, merch. Emory memorabilia, all of that will be available to them, and interactive attractions for them to feel a part of community without feeling like they have to have those sometimes tough conversations. But again, I just submitted the flyer through chat, so you have the full breakdown of the categories from Sunday to Wednesday. But we're very, very excited about this opportunity and hope your students partake.
Okay, we're looking forward to hearing about the hub.
Yes, so the last part is the hub. And so this is our online organization management system. And so what we provide here is basically it's basically Facebook for our student organizations and all the happenings that are on campus. And so here is where your student and you, if you want, are able to explore all the variety of student organizations as well as departments and offices across campus that are hosting experiences for your student. And so this is one thing that I really highly encourage many people to go to. There's the website right there, thehub.emory.edu. Can't be more simple than that. You can find events that are posted there. You can RSVP for some events that are asking for those, or you can just explore all the variety of student organizations. So they're listed by undergrad and graduate, so they can see what the graduate organizations are as well. But obviously focus on the undergraduate-based student organizations and all the events and meetings that they will have. And just let you know that here at Emory is that we ask that all the student organizations, if they are to have an event that is open to the public, basically, beyond their exec board, that they put those events on the hub. And so that calendar will be full by the time your student arrives here on campus.
So Lisa, to get onto the hub, then to get access, it requires, I believe, an Emory email address, correct?
For some of the contact-based information, because that is protected information, your student will have what's called a net ID and a password, and that's the information they will use to log into a variety of different components to Emory's access points. But it is open to the public without a net ID. To basically the basic information without the contact information. So you as a parent, family, or guardian will be able to scroll through the different organizations. You just might not be privy to some of the very specific information as it relates to protected information, but you're more than welcome to go on there as well.
Great, thank you, Lisa. And just like we tell family members, we just offer you an opportunity to give your student a nudge, and it will be for your students to do. We want them to grow and be their independent thinkers, but we know that you have a great deal of influence, and you might be able to say to your student that you became aware of a student organization that might interest them, and just a parental nudge is helpful, and then it's up to them to follow through. And we do have so many, like Lisa mentioned, the SEER team is like individualized attention, really to help students figure out what might be of interest to them, something they might not have thought of. So thank you, Lisa. Again, we're all here together and we appreciate everything that you're doing. So I'm going to move it on to Chanel, and we're going to talk a little bit about the wonderful opportunities with our belonging and community justice area. And Chanel, you see our graphic here, which is really helpful. So can you tell our families a little bit about each of those areas so they know, because a lot of them probably have some information already with their students. However, there's so much more to explore.
Yeah, so belonging and community justice is a collective of offices and programs that really support our most marginalized students. And so the way I think about it is these are students who, when the institution was originally designed and built, was not thinking about them, right? And so oftentimes I think of the work that we do as a difference between having a custom pair of pants that are made just for you versus having a pair of pants that you're trying to get to fit, right? And so what we try to do is try to alter the pants so that they feel comfortable for other people. And so what I mean by that is we have the Center for Women, because women weren't originally part of Emory. We have the Office of LGBT Life. So even if we had LGBT students here, they weren't able to live their true selves and really thrive in that identity. We have the Office of Racial and Cultural Engagement, which we call the Office for Race. 1915 Scholars is a program that is for first generation students, so students who are the first in their families to attend college. And Mariposa Scholars, which is for our DACA students. And then in the white lines, I put the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, which is our Oxford counterpart. So they're not officially a part of Belonging and Community Justice, but we work very closely with them because so many of those students, leave Oxford and then come over and are involved in our offices. So what our mission is Belonging and Community Justice supports Emory students' education, empowerment, wellness, and sense of purpose and belonging, while seeking to create a just and equitable campus where all students thrive. And it's really just the way our name says, right? So part of what we do is make sure students feel like they belong. The other part of what we do is advocate on behalf of students, help students advocate for, changes that they want to see in the community, and really hold Emory accountable to its mission of being an inclusive university for everyone.
So Chanel, when students are coming to Emory, one of the things that families may or may not know, we have a lot of open houses at the beginning of the year. And so can you talk, those are just amazing. And a lot of us go to all of them just to meet our students.
Yeah, so we have open houses for the identity spaces, and we can get in that on the next slide a little bit, but we do have, so I'll go there and then I'll go back to the open houses. And so there are a few ways that you can get involved in our offices. So one is to join a club or organization based on your identity and culture. And I recommend going to the hub. And what's really cool about the hub is you can actually sort according to categories. So one of the categories you could look for is culture, diversity, and ethnicity. And you can see all of the organizations that fit under that group.
Oh, I apologize. I'm looking at the chat and I went forward. So just
that's okay. I think I know these bullets.
Okay, I'm going to move forward and everyone just bear with me. It's my technical glitch. Go ahead, keep going, and I'll get out of my chat so I make sure I answer those questions.
So you can also sort under your political ideology, right? So one of the organizations that comes out of the Center for Women is Feminists in Action, for example. So you could sort under that. You could sort under your religious affiliation. So I think the hub is a really good first step for someone who is trying to explore their identity, or who wants to be with people who they're people, right? Finding their people. We also have more office supported opportunities in our office that are like staffed. We are making sure that we are working much more closely with those students. And some of those opportunities are things like our queer discussion groups. And there are a ton of queer discussion groups around every identity that office supports. So there's Blackout, which is like a group for Black students who identify as queer. We have things for queer women. So like really whatever you can think of, there are queer discussion groups around that identity that are student-led, and it's a private space. So they close the door, they're in the Office of LGBT Life, and they're meeting around things that matter to them. And then we have I Am Woman programs, which are women of color based programs. So there's the kitchen table for Black women, there's Waves for Asian women, there's Terraza for our Latinas. And those kind of programs are also student driven. So usually students come to us with the idea for something like that, and we work with them to build it. So there's also one that is being developed for Middle Eastern women called the Chai House. Then there's a more mentorship program where it's a peer mentoring program for students of color. We have a ton of heritage and history months. So, early on when you come to campus, there will be Latinx Heritage Month or Hispanic Heritage Month. We celebrate Women's History Month, Black History Month, Asian American History Month. So we really do really support these heritage months. And I think that those are wonderful opportunities to learn about other cultures and to also, find people who share your identity and hang out with them. And then we do also have programs around privilege. So out of the Center for Women, we have a Good Guides Alliance, which is an opportunity for men who really want to think about masculinity in a different way and be advocates and allies for women and girls. There's a training program for that. We do readings around white privilege. And so our offices are really great places for students who are trying to think about their privilege.
And Chanel, I apologize for getting off that slide.
No, that's okay.
You are such an expert, so I had confidence in you. You just got to see my little technical glitch. But Chanel, I want to add to this is one of the things I've been so impressed with your areas are that when there's student need, you respond. So
absolutely.
A lot of, like Chanel, you just mentioned, these were founded because of student interest. And so we want families to know your student may come here and propose something else. And we might have another topical group, which would be so great. And so some of these groups, they grow and they expand, or new splinter groups come out. So I really appreciate that you and your staff are always so responsive to what students need.
Yeah, and I think what we try to do is, because we're staff, we have a longer institutional memory. So we can help students pick up where the last group of students who wanted to really organize around this issue, we can help them pick up where the last group left off. So you end up with a much deeper, you end up with belonging and community justice, and something that allows students to have be a part of a legacy of diversity, equity, and inclusion at this university, which I think is just a beautiful thing.
I do too. It's one of, like, I always say this, and if you've been on any of the summer send-offs, families, you've heard me say this, you come to Emory, you come to the world. And the world is at your fingertips. And this is just such a great example of that. So I see Rachel put her picture up. So Rachel, tell us a little bit about any experiences that you've had that can help families encourage their students.
Yeah, Chanel, I would co-sign a lot of what Chanel said. She covered so many animating factors. So she gives a lot of examples of what Emory does provide, and new students will definitely be able to find people who are like them and people who relate to their interests. But also, if you don't see what you're looking for, then we always encourage them to take the initiative to start it, whether that looks like a new cultural association or a sports club or being an activist for a specific cause. There are so many students who start something at Emory that they hadn't seen before, and many students are interested in joining. So something that happens for a lot of students is that they get involved in something that they've never explored before. So for example, I'm a domestic student. I grew up in Alabama and I loved debate in high school. That was like my passion. So when I got to Emory, I thought, okay, my friends will probably be like the friends I had in high school, all debaters, but that was completely false. It turns out like one of the first friends that I made was an international student from China. And even though my parents are from China, I grew up as an American, very westernized. And there was no such thing as an international student at my, Alabama public high school. So this girl, she's still my best friend to this day. And because of her, I joined a cultural club during my first week of school. And so I found connections in two ways from Emory. The first is like this long-term friendship with someone that is very different than me. And secondly, Emory helped me actually find my culture and my heritage. I was able to join a very vibrant group of students who, although they're different nationalities, we are like very connected in a deeper way. So like Lisa said, we have 400 student organizations and clubs, but I think the best thing that Emory offers is the endless opportunity to connect with diversity, cultures, people, and food. Food is very important to the students.
Yeah, food's a big thing at college. So Chanel, tell us a little bit too about like the staff. The staff, like this, we all hang out together. I mean, like we all know one another so well, and we all count on each other. And then when you see how that works with students, it's just a really awesome opportunity. And so tell us a little bit about the staff and hanging out, because I love to go to those offices and hang out and see what's going on with students. And that's how I try to stay up with things.
Yeah, so I think that the staff are one of the best resources we have for students who are looking for community and looking for ways to get involved. I remember a student several years ago, Chelsea Jackson, who has gone on to be a Rhodes Scholar, but as a freshman, she comes into the Center for Women and she says, my mama said I need to find the Black women on campus. And so, hello, I'm Chelsea, and I needed to find my people. And I was like, well, come on in, Chelsea, and she ended up being one of our brightest lights because she had that advice. Like, I need to find staff members that look like me or who can relate to my experience. And so I think that the staff in BCJ, Belonging in Community Justice, are really important because we all navigated college as members of the communities that we serve. And so we didn't all go to Emory, but we all did go to college and have to think about how we explore our identities, understand our identities, and move through the world. So for myself, I'm Black, I'm a woman, but I was also first generation. And you can't always see who's first gen, right? Like that's not an identity you can look at and see. So I always try to make it a point to say that. But even for those of us who don't hold that as identities, because we work so closely with others in those offices, we really do understand and can connect you to those resources to help you explore it yourself. I also think that we are a really great resources for students who hold privileged identities and want to understand their privilege better.
Absolutely.
We're the experts. Like, we know how to do this.
Absolutely, right.
We can help you if you have something that maybe you got called out for by your roommate and you want to understand, well, what did I do wrong? And how do I, work through this? We are a really, really great place to just sit and have those kind of one-on-one conversations. We help organizations deal with conflict in ways that feel right. So sometimes they may not want a punitive response, like they don't want to just kick people out of the club, but they want to figure out how do we hold this person accountable, but still, hold our values of being, I don't know, like a club that is really thinking about social justice in different ways. And we connect you to resources all across the university, and we can also really help you find your people, your friends, connect you to students who are involved in our offices. So I think staff, and not just BCJ staff, I think staff across the university and campus life are real. If you can encourage your student to be brave enough to do what Chelsea did and say, my mama said, I need to find these people, I think that they can be a wonderful resource and mentors and support system for your student.
Right, and I think there's a level of care and compassion that exists throughout the university. You know, that's why we're here. It's for students. We're here for students. And so there's a level of care and compassion, and also an understanding that we all come from different places and that we all bring different experiences to where we come. And so, and we don't expect everyone to have the same experience.
And I think to the point that Rachel made about making friends, that's generally the kind of advice I give. Like, there's so many amazing courses you could take at Emory and all these kind of clubs and organizations that can help you think about diversity, equity, inclusion, justice. But the best way is friendship. I really do believe friendship is a way of life, because if you make friends with someone who is different from you, then, and they're really your friend, then you want to know more about what makes their life different from yours. What are some of the challenges that they face that maybe you never understood? And then that makes you a better ally, because I'm not gonna let somebody just talk about my friend. Like, that's my friend. It becomes,
it's true.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like, it's a heart thing at that point.
Yeah. And so one of the things you have on here is, in closing, is the hangout space. And I want to add that goes for the other offices that have been explained on this webinar, is that we miss you all, students. We miss our students. We want, that's what we like, again, that's what we live for. We want you to hang out. We're going to, if we have to teach you how to hang out, we're going to teach you how to hang out. So talk a little bit about our hangout spaces.
Yeah, so we have identity spaces that we support out of BCJ. So the Center for Women, LGBT Life. We also have an Emory Black Student Union, Central Latinx, and a brand new Asian Student Center that it will be opening in August. And we're really, really excited about it. And so these are spaces that are focused on a student's identity. So they're not spaces for, like, I wouldn't just go hang out in Central Latinx to learn about Latinx culture. It's not for that. It's not for me. It's a space that it's really for Latinx students to be together in a place for reprieve. But students are sleeping in there. They're taking, you know, working on group projects. They're studying, they're watching the TV, they're checking out books. They're heating up their lunch. So it really is these are really wonderful spaces for students who just want to hang out with folks who are part of their identity. And so it's kind of an anchoring and a sailing kind of thing. So you can be anchored in who you are and explore parts of who you are in a safe space in these spaces, so that then you can go out into the rest of Emory and explore in different ways. So I'm going to drop in the chat a link to the mock-ups of because all of our spaces got refreshed and they are so nice and so beautiful. So I want you all to see what they're going to look like. I have not seen the new spaces yet, though we are looking like we are on time, and there will be a big grand opening on September 8th that I hope you encourage all your students to attend so that they can see it. And then in 2023, we are getting even newer spaces. So Emory really, really supports these identities. And I think your students picked a wonderful place to come and be supported.
And we, like we said, acronyms, LGBT stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender life. So we want you to know on that one, because again, we get used to our acronyms and we forget. But that was a summation of what we're talking about, is that we support all people. And that's a cool thing about Emory. So I'd like all of our panelists to put your cameras back on. And I do want to see if there's any additional questions. I think our panelists had a really great PowerPoint showing us so much about what's happening at Emory and how your students can be involved and get excited about expanding their experience beyond the classroom. And so, as we always say, if you have additional questions, you can always email ec.orientation@emory.edu. There's updates all the time. We're always happy to answer questions. Jill and I work closely together. We're excited to have your students here. Your student will be with us in a month. We're going to be in the middle of orientation. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. It's going to maybe sometimes be overwhelming. So just be that supporter that you have been for all these months. And we know that you're going to be in a new phase with your students, but we're excited to get them engaged at Emory in meaningful ways. So again, I want to thank Chanel, Jordan, Rachel, and Lisa. I really appreciate your involvement today. And we're looking forward to talking with families. Our next program is next Friday. It's on housing, dining, and residence life. And as y'all know, your family members that are students did get their housing assignments, and we know that you're thinking of shipping and packing and what you're going to bring, and we're looking forward to talking to you about all the details. So again, thank you to our panelists. We're excited to see your students soon, and we'll hope to see you next week on Family Friday webinar.